Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, wherever you find your favorite shows. We think this episode has a great chance of becoming one of your favorite shows. Two wonderful guests. First up, Brett Bean is here to celebrate Muck and Honey Treehouse Trouble. And later in the show, we travel over to Dublin in Ireland to speak with Neil Sharpson, the author of Don't Trust Fish. Hey, parents, grandparents, caregivers, and teachers, are you looking for a fun way to teach important values to your kids? Check out Timothy'sLessons.com.
It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. Teaching life lessons to his friends. It's Timothy's Lessons. Forward thinking activities. It's Timothy's Lessons. Building confidence and mental strength. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. Wonderful fun sing-along songs. It's Timothy's Lessons. Important lessons on key values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Children's books and uplifting stories. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values. It's Timothy's Lessons. Timothy's Lessons in good values.
Check it out today, Timothy'sLessons.com. Hey, families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. Hey, my friends, really excited to announce we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read. Welcome to My World by Tyrone Trotter. This is a heartwarming and insightful children's book that beautifully weaves themes of kindness, curiosity, and understanding. Through the eyes of Lauren and her sister, readers are introduced to a world where everyday interactions become opportunities for learning and connection. The story begins with Lauren preparing for her day, balancing schoolwork, community service, and a guest speaker visit. The introduction of Lou Samuel, a blind technology instructor, is a standout moment in the book. His explanation of snapping as a form of echolocation is both educational and inspiring. It's just amazing. What makes Welcome to My World truly special is its ability to blend education with storytelling. It gently introduces children to the lives of individuals with visual impairments, fostering understanding and inclusivity. The characters are relatable, the dialogue is engaging, and the lessons are timeless. We loved it. Go out and get your copy today. It's Welcome to My World by Tyrone Trotter, a certified great read. Join us right now from the beautiful city of Angels. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new hybrid chapter book. It's called Muck and Honey, Treehouse Troubles. Please welcome to the show, Brett Bean. Hey, Brett, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Jed. How are you doing?
Wonderful. I'm excited. Before we jump into who Muck and Honey are and what kind of trouble they're causing, talk a little bit about the book. You were saying this is a hybrid to kind of bridge the gap between chapter books and picture books?
Yeah. So it's the prime age would be 6 to 9. It's those kids that are just kind of getting out of that faster, shorter sentence book and getting in before they're really ready to go for like chapter books without any drawing, without any real artwork in it. It's bridging the gap between those ones. So they're getting longer sentences. They're getting a little more structure, but it's still in a fun, engaging way where there's artwork on every page and it sort of like gets them from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So it's that type of book.
I'm curious, with all the images our kids are exposed to, do you think the need for a bridge like Muck and Honey is even more needed today?
I think, every child is so unique. So I would say for some kids, yes, it's absolutely necessary. And there's going to be a full spectrum of kids that are way beyond it who don't get very much screen time. And then all the ones that had too much screen time for various reasons in the world, no judgment on anybody, but it's trying to get them to kind of pull away from those screens and say, hey, here's something that might be just as entertaining, and to sort of get their brains kind of going in that way instead of just relying on that digital content sort of front that we seem to be in.
Well, I think we certainly have been bombarded by it. I remember taking, my daughter was in 8th grade, so it must have been 15 years ago. I was taking a media literacy class. And at that time, in the class, we were told that kids are exposed to 300 media messages a day. And
right.
I am imagining that is 10 or 20x these days.
It is. So I am actually currently living it. I had a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old during the pandemic. And I couldn't talk to anybody unless they had been through the Spanish flu to talk to anybody who had been a parent through a pandemic, so you couldn't talk to anybody, but all the rules went out the window. Yeah. So that number climbed so drastically high because when you had to work from home, you had to get stuff done. Both parents were doing their thing and you're trying to keep everybody alive. And so screens and doing all that kind of stuff, you couldn't go out to go to a bookstore anyway. Mm-hmm. So everything was manifested by multiplication table of the amount of screen time every child ended up getting for those 2 years. And once the Pandora's box is open, it's so hard to put it back, right? So it's almost like how do you process that just moving forward, saying, great, you're going to be used to this now. How do we add these other things, sprinkle them back in to remind you to not look at those screens, those messages that you're talking about where they get so many every day. It's a new world that I'm even adjusting to and they're used to, right? Yeah. I never had to do Zoom meetings or we would have so they could still play with their friends. I was like, great, you're going to get these video games ahead of time that I normally would have, but here it is now. And then here's your Zoom meeting that you never would be a part of, because school did it and then their friends did it. You're like, all this stuff came way faster than it should have.
Yeah.
So how do you bring it back? How do you add these other things? So.
But to be honest with you, I'm looking at the cover art for Muck and Honey, and I would have just as much, I think, even as a kid, because I grew up in the era. I'm almost 100. I grew up in the era where we stared at the cereal box. Same cereal box every morning for the whole time that we're eating it, and read the cereal box and everything. But, I think there's something about a still image that is filled with so much. And your cover art for Muck and Honey is just that. There's so much going on there. And to be able to look at it without anything moving actually gives you the chance to experience and see everything that's there and let your imagination play with it. So hopefully books like Muck and Honey are going to turn the tide and bring kids back.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope even the messages inside start to develop and foster that too. That there's a success and failure and sort of like a building of friendships and a back and forth that I think a lot of kids, especially nowadays, are sort of missing.
Mm.
Um, and as a parent who's going through it right now, it's kind of why I wrote it in there that way. So
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, kids failing and learning that that's kind of okay, and kind of figuring out things on our own. I'm really happy my kids are now 29 and 31, and they didn't grow up in the time. They grew up in the time where they could actually walk to school without me having to be afraid that I'm going to get arrested for letting my kids walk to school. And although the day was pretty structured with class and sports and whatnot, it wasn't completely structured like I see a lot of kids' lives these days.
yeah, that is true. We can always look back. I have my rose tinted classes as well, even my childhood, and I look back and go, oh, I was what were with my generation, the latchkey kids were just like go
Huh?
outside, come back for dinner. When you hear the dinner bell, come back at 7 p.m. sort of thing. I've had cars stop in front of my house and my kid is just out there playing and they're like, where are your parents? I'm like, this is my house and he's just in my driveway. And
Oh,
people are stopping asking, are you okay? So it is definitely a different beast of a world right now. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a different take on things. I wish I could go backwards and give the kids a big old dose of no social media. My kids are already asking for it, and I'm like, it'll eventually happen to you, but you're not going to get it for a bit, and you're going to be mad at me, and then hopefully by the time you're in college, you'll be happy with me
yeah,
that I did it. You know?
absolutely, absolutely. So Muck and Honey is a pair of friends, Honey Bunny and Muck Moose.
Yes, they are. Yeah. They are based off of my children. So I've got one. My oldest one is very anxiety driven and sort of like everything has to be in its place and a little bit more, straight laced. He's my Muck Moose. And then I have the youngest one who came in right under the pandemic, and he is the wildest child on the planet, and so he is my honey bunny, and he's bouncing off the walls all the time and getting his brother into trouble and stuff. So yeah, I kind of based the pair off of my two children, strictly because they would take all of the trash and everything that we would have in the house, and I would take out the cardboard, and they would sift through it, bring it back into the house, hide it under their beds, and then make racetracks and make swords and make shields and all this stuff out of all these spare parts. And that sort of started the journey of thinking about these as characters, as like actual two people. And it's easy because I just look at them and go, oh, that's what you do and that's what you do. Great.
Now, are the kids aware that they're the models or inspiration for these characters? And if they are, how do they feel about it?
The older one knows. He read the book and read the stories as like I'm Muck, and I was like, oh, you don't know how much you're Muck. It's like you're saying that to like a parent saying like, oh, I identify with that character. I said, well, you should because it's you. But he didn't know that much, so now he's like really happy about it. But he did, so I did my job. He didn't realize it was based off of him, and then came to realize that it was. The younger one, he's just turned 6. And his awareness factor is not necessarily on that
Sure.
level yet.
Uh,
So he's like, oh, like I like that character, that's funny, but he'll get
yeah.
there.
So what kind of trouble do they get into the treehouse?
Well, there is an experiment they're making. It's called the Triple Decker Hunger Wrecker, and it is currently cooking upstairs when downstairs the staircase is broken. So their adventure starts with they have to get back up their treehouse before their experiment explodes. And
Ah,
all that gooey goodness will just wreak havoc all over the treehouse. And during that time, as they are experimenting and trying to come up with a plan on how to get back up their treehouse from the broken staircase, other animals in the forest, who they are the forest inventors, have problems, and then they have to figure out how to get themselves up the treehouse and at the same time help their friends out, because that's what good force inventors do. They're always helpful.
There you go. I love that. You mentioned that Muck and Honey are based on your kids. What about this idea of being inventors and the message of letting kids know that it's okay to experiment and fail? Was there something? Was that just a divine inspiration? What did you set out to deliver that message?
That is one that I always have to tell my oldest child, because everything has to be an A+, everything has to be correct, everything has to be sort of in its space. And my youngest one is also an artist, so he draws all the time, and when he doesn't make a correct line, he gets very mad at himself. And so, and it's not based off of anything that I've done, because I try not to, like, you're doing something wrong, because he's not at that point of, like, talking about that, and way to squash a dream. So when he just naturally does that, I go, oh, both these kids are doing it in their own way of being upset when something's not perfect, when there's a failure. And I really loved, one, I grew up watching the Mythbusters as well. So there was always, what I really loved about them is that trial and error, that failure is always an option. And so I tried to teach my kids and instill in them, it's like, you will not succeed without failure. And I try to tell them, it's like, you don't see Dad fail. You didn't see all the years of drawing failures. You didn't see all the years of messing up and screwing up. You just see Dad's successes, much like social media, which is what we have to teach our kids, is like, oh, there's all this fake stuff happening to the left and right of the screen, and it looks perfect in this moment of time, but that's not the way real life is, right? It's just the version they're showing you, which is not reality. And so the same thing with success is like, the reality is there's lots of failures with that, from every businessman all the way down to just doing a drawing or just, making a Lego build that you screwed up on.
Yeah.
It happens, and how you roll with it, how you deal with it, how you overcome that, is going to make you more of a valuable person than just being successful for the first time. You won't learn anything from a success the first time, but you'll learn a powerful message off of a failure.
Yeah. It reminds me, I've done educational magic shows for over 35 years at schools throughout the country. And one of the questions that I got after a particularly fun show, kid raised his hand and goes, have you ever made a mistake on stage? To which I answered, oh, you obviously didn't catch the one I made today. And I don't think there's a show I've ever done where I didn't make a mistake. The key is keeping it secret.
Yeah. And just moving on and going, oh, yeah, for sure.
I've had many of those moments, and my wife has caught the eye roll in her camera a couple of times. And I always find that pretty amusing. It seems to me that Muck and Honey are perfect for a series.
Yeah. So I paused drawing book 2 just to do this podcast. So yeah, I am currently drawing the second one. It's completely written out. So now I'm just kind of finishing up the touches and doing the color work on book 2. So yeah.
Excellent.
It will continue.
I'm always curious to find out what comes first when I'm speaking to an author illustrator, the visual or the text in the story.
So it's a little bit in tandem, to where I thought about the kids. So I thought about the idea first and going, well, I'm not going to draw my kids. I just don't want to put that into the world and, make it about that. So then trying to turn them into characters would be the next stage. And then once I felt like I had the inventor part, which was the text part again, so it would be this back and forth, and then go, well, can I build a story around these two characters? Are they strong enough to support a storied structure, not just an IP or an idea, right? Because the world building is one thing, but unless they're interesting in a story setting, you don't have a book, in my opinion. You just have like an idea. And so then I sort of like, it just sort of sits there, and I start writing out stuff and go, okay, they would do this and then this. So the character designs kind of came first because I needed them to have a voice, and then the text, and then the imagery came out after that. Because once I knew I had the characters, then I know that, I can build the world around them. No problem. But I needed a voice for who they are. And since I'm a visual creature, I kind of go back and forth between those two things.
And the forest, explained to me that you live in a more suburban area of LA. But have you always had a love of the forest?
Absolutely. I'm from Seattle, Washington, so there's always a lot of hiking. And, I was actually really obsessed with Sasquatch for a long time. I thought I would find him one day. So, just going through the wet muck all the time and like looking for footprints and like, man, I had those old Time Life books where it like broke down UFOs and broke down Yetis and broke down Sasquatch. I had all those things, and I was so sure I was going to be the one to find. So yeah, so forest and sort of like that outdoors experience was always really important for the story on this one.
Yeah. I was touring Puerto Rico, maybe 20 years ago, and just at that time they're finding these creatures that had been attacked and eaten and killed, and it was all being blamed on the chupacabra.
Yes, the chupacabra. I remember that one.
And I'm in the middle of a show, and just ideas come into my head, and I have this big box, and I open the box, and I look inside, and I go and slam the box down, and go, oh, chupacabra, and place it just half of the kids are screaming and running out the door, and the other half are falling.
That's great.
Do you have a chance to get out and interact with kids at school shows? And if you are, what do they look like?
Well, children look like children if that's what they look like. I think I've seen a few of them. No. So I haven't had too many. I do a lot of conventions though. Yeah. So I do get to meet a lot of the kids. I just went to Emerald Con in Seattle. So I just did that one. And it's really nice because most of the kids, they just talk to you like it's a one-to-one person. So there's no sort of like anybody of like, ooh, they do this or ooh, they do that. I love the kids' interactions because it's just, oh, here's this person who's willing to talk to me and see eye to eye. And I've noticed a lot of parents don't really talk to kids on their level. And I really like talking to them on their level. So I ask them lots of questions and we sort of go back and forth and they'll just sit at my desk and we'll just draw a picture together. And we're like, oh, I like that heart. And I was like, oh, awesome. And that really simple thing is, it kind of like makes my day compared to a lot of the adult interactions that I have. So even at the birthday parties and stuff, I don't hang out with the adults. They want to talk about Bed Bath and Beyond, and they want to talk about, paying their bills and stuff. And I'm out there playing, jump rope and throwing the football with kids. And then when I go in to see the school, all the kids like, oh, hey, Mr. Bean, and hi. And that's like the coolest feeling, is because also a lot of the adults kind of look at me as like, why do all the kids know you? I'm like, they should know all of us. They should, every party has an opportunity.
Well, that I am really glad you said that, because I absolutely agree with you. I can't tell you the number of kids, our house was always open, whether it was my kids and their friends, or we hosted international kids and their friends were always invited over. One year we were the cool Chinese house, which was very cool. But I was always amazed at the number of kids when they would come over and we'd talk and have dinner. I'd just say, so what do you folks do? And so many of them had no idea. And
right.
It's obvious that in a lot of those homes, for whatever reason, there's not a lot of communication going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of dictation and a lot of like, this is your chores, this is what you got to do. But, yeah, I kind of make it a point that when I interact with kids that, I interact with them. So I've actually said to other parents, I'm like, no, I didn't ask you, because they'll talk for their child. And I try to remind them, it's like, no, when I'm talking to them, even if it's hard, if it takes them twice as long to come up with a sentence or whatever it is. And I even do it with my oldest because he likes to talk for his younger brother. I said, no, I'll ask you how your day was. I've asked this person because I am doing a one-on-one. And I think that's really important to talk individually with those people because they will remember that. So I think every child remembers that, and they go, oh, I remember you specifically knowing something about me or asking about who I am at my level. So yeah. It's important.
Yeah, I remember having an interaction with one of my daughter's friends and just saying to her, "You're a great young person. I really enjoy spending time with you," and blown away.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you said the nicest thing, and I'm like, really? I'm happy I said it, but I'm really sad. That's the nicest thing you've heard.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm glad that started the trend, but yeah, we should be way past that one. But yeah, I feel you. That happens far too often.
You know, one of the things I typically ask an illustrator, and you've kind of already answered it, ask them what kind of advice would you give to an aspiring illustrator? What kind of advice can you share with parents that they can share? But I think you just taking time to sit and to communicate with a kid at a con or at an event at school, at a party, and just see what they're doing and
Yeah.
create with them. I think that's a real good way for a parent to encourage their kids to be creative.
I think so for sure. And a lot of times we'll see, and my wife is a jewelry designer, so we've got a very creative household. And sometimes we'll just sit and we'll just kind of ask the kids, I'm like, okay, here's all the supplies, and there's like pipe, the little pipe cleaners and everything, and just go, what are we doing? Like we made leprechaun traps on Sunday. So because it was St. Patty's Day on Monday, so everyone got to make like little leprechaun traps of how they would catch a leprechaun in the house.
Uh-huh.
And so every one of us solved the problem differently, right? So, and that's the thing is like we try to give them, now I'm not perfect, so it's not like it's like every single day is this like, great parent, excursion. But in those moments you go like, okay, now it's, what do you want to do? How do you want to spend our quality time together? Not the way I think we should have our quality time, because I'm going to think like an adult. I'm going to think, we're going to build, some great connection between us in this way. And it's like, well, I'm looking at it from an adult's, no matter what, I try to be childlike, but it's from an adult way. And yeah, I find that what their version is always very different and very simple.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they just want to spend time. And I picked up the game Crokinole, and that's all they want to do now is like, Dad, can we just play Crokinole before bedtime? And it's just like a little disc game that you kick the little tiny discs into the hole and you just play one-on-one. And that's what they want to do before bedtime. And they go, this is some of my favorite things now. And you're like, oh, it's so simple. It doesn't have to be this extravagant thing. It can just be really simple. Just ask your kids what they want to do and you'll be surprised.
Well, it's just another great reminder that no matter what our kids say, especially when they get to be teenagers and they tell us that they hate us and they don't want to be with us and drop me off 4 blocks from school, you're still pretty important in their lives. And just being with them is a wonderful gift.
Yeah. Sometimes they need you next to them, and sometimes they need to know that you'd be next to them.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't need it at that time. Like that's the part that I think is really important. And then they know that they can always come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you need me, I will be here, but I'm not gonna make you. And that's a tough one.
We've had this has been wonderful. Any idea when book number 2 is going to come out?
I don't. If I can continue at my pace, I would like to hope that would be at the end of the year or early in 2025. But I just gotta get bustin', as the Ghostbusters would say.
Well, I think you meant to say early in 2026.
Oh, 2026. Yes, sorry. Yes, I just did my taxes for 2024, so I had 2024 on my mind.
Well, I hear you with that.
Yeah.
Tell us where we can go to find out more about Muck and Honey, Treehouse Trouble, and find out more about you, because you have a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on. Yes, I have a website, www.brettbean.com. You can find things. You can purchase it from there. You can find it at any brick and mortar shop, hopefully, online, anywhere. Great kids' books are sold. And I have a pretty robust Substack and a Instagram account that I keep going on. So those are probably my 2 biggest things for my day-to-day.
we've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Muck and Honey, Treehouse Trouble. Our guest has been Brett Bean. Brett, thanks for being here, and come on back early 2026 to celebrate the new book.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jed. Appreciate you.
Hey, my friends, here's something to think about. What if mistakes weren't something to fear, but something to celebrate? In It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe, young readers meet Bink, a lovable little monster who worries they're not good enough when they struggle or make mistakes. But then, Bink discovers a powerful truth. Every uh-oh is an opportunity. Every question is a chance to grow. And every child deserves to know perfection isn't what makes you special. Curiosity, courage, and self-love do. A must-read for parents, teachers, and anyone who wants to help kids build resilience and confidence. Get your copy of It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe today, because learning begins when we stop fearing the unknown. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Join us right now from the absolutely lovely city of Dublin in Ireland. Our guest is here today to celebrate his hilarious new picture book. It's called Don't Trust Fish. Please welcome to the show, Neil Sharpson. Hey, Neil, how are you?
I'm great. I'm delighted to have you. The change in energy there. We were having a very kind of like relaxed conversation. He says, live from Dublin. It was kind of like consummate showman.
Well, I apologize if I scared you. I forget, the first time I ever noticed it, I was, backstage talking to someone, just having a lovely conversation, and the stage manager gave me my cue, and I turned my microphone on and turned away from the person and goes, hey, what's up? And I came off stage and the guy's like, how do you do that? I'm like, do what? But you're going to tell us all about Don't Trust Fish.
Sure, absolutely. What would you like to know?
I hear that fish in your book they just can't be trusted. They're villainous.
Yes, they're very, very sinister group of individuals. How the story kind of like began. It was during the COVID pandemic, and me and my wife and our kids and a few of our friends, we finally kind of like we decided to have a holiday together. So we were all kind of like, in isolation, and we kind of like had our bubbles or whatever they called. And then, so we were all kind of like staying out in this one house in Connemara, and we realized that none of the kids had a birthday party in years, because of COVID. So we said, okay, well, we're going to throw a party for the kids, but, instead of kind of like buying presents, we're just going to kind of like, make presents. Cause, of course, all my friends are like, they're painters and all these kind of like annoying arty-farty people. And I was just like, what the hell am I going to do? I can't, like, I'm all thumbs. So I decided, well, I'll just write a story. I'll just kind of like, I'll stick to what to what I know. And I wrote, so I ended up just writing this really kind of like short picture book, like you just like getting stock images off Google and just kind of like sticking them in, and I just kind of like, and the whole thing took like 20 minutes. And then I was kind of like, I was reading to the kids, and the kids actually like responded really, really positively, and they thought it was very, very funny. And yeah, and then I just kind of like, I sent it off to my agent, and I was like, look, I know you don't represent Kids Lit, but do you want to take a look at this? And she said, sure, I'll give it a shot. She was kind of like, yeah. And then he sent it up, and we ended up getting a 2-book deal. So it's like, it wasn't bad for 20 minutes work,
Well, I all the hate that I'm going to get from aspiring authors who listen to the show, I'm just going to direct it your way.
All right. In fairness, I'd already kind of like, I'd already had gotten an agent. I'd already published a book by then. So it's not nearly as easy as I'm making it sound. Granted. That does kind of like make it, once you're in, that kind of like makes a huge difference. Yes.
It does. And I mean, in all honesty, there are some things that are just ready to burst into existence. There's no I was at I created a video way back, probably before you were born, in 1989, and
nope, I was around.
Okay, I was at a UB40 concert, and there was this idea. I had to create this video. It was a full work. It was a project. It was coming due. I had no idea. And then right in the middle of this concert, I just saw this whole thing play out in front of my eyes, and I'm so panicked that it's going to disappear before I get home. And so I'm trying to hold on to it, and I get home, and I go to sit down to write it, and then the power goes out, and then we had to write it by candlelight, but it literally came out, when we finally sat down, it was about, and maybe an hour. It took me to write out the script, and there had to be some fine tuning and whatnot, as I'm sure there was with your book. But sometimes it just comes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And when you have a group of kids right there that you can, kind of bounce it off, what a blessing that was.
Oh yeah, and it's been great. So I've been kind of like, since Fish has kind of like, I said, I've just been focusing more and more on writing kids' books as opposed to writing for adults, and having the 2 kids there to be able to kind of like just as guinea pigs, it's been great.
Yeah. Well, that aspiring author that I was telling you about, she just heard you say, I'm focusing on kids' books, and they're saying, of course you're focusing on kids' books. It only took you 20 damn minutes. No wonder.
It's true. It's true though. It is. It's definitely. It's a far less grueling process. Because right now I'm working on an adult's book that I've been writing on that, I think, about 4 years, and it's just like, it's so much more of an intense program. And you do kind of like say, what am I doing here? Adults don't even read anymore. Kids are the only.
Yeah, I guess there is a drop in readership. I think kids' books are just so much fun, and when you're writing a kids' book, I guess you probably thought of this, that you're not only writing for kids, but you're writing for the adult that's going to read with them, because picture books are meant to be read to kids.
Yeah, and I think it also just kind of like comes from being in the trenches myself, and like I've 2 kids, I read to them every night, and I've had to read some absolute garbage in my time, so you kind of, you do have to, that does kind of like, it gives you the incentive to kind of like, to put something for the parents in there as well. So it's not, because a lot, how kids can sometimes just hyper fixate on a specific movie or TV show or book and just want to experience it over and over and over and over again. And it can, if there's nothing there for the parents, it can be absolute torture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was actually just telling, I guess I interviewed about an hour ago. My kids, when my daughter was in 3rd grade, my son was in 5th grade, they were fixated on Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail.
okay, you could do a lot worse.
It was wonderful. Because I loved it. I introduced them to it. I thought it'd be one and done, but no, it's like every night. And I'm like, all right, dudes, I can do this with you.
Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah.
there are two kinds of people. There are people who know that Monty Python, the Holy Grail, is the best Monty Python film, and the people who are wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
No disrespect to the likes of Brian, but Holy Grail is better.
We're preaching to the choir here. I love it. I'm guessing from what you told me so far about Don't Trust Fish is some of that humor, some of that Monty Python humor might have been rubbed off in this book.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I think probably there's so much kind of like comedic kind of like influence that you pick up in your life. My father was, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Goon Show. It was showing my age now. Well, it was kind of it was originally a comedy radio show on the BBC in like the 1950s.
Okay.
But very much a precursor to the Goon Show. It was kind of like huge influence on the Goon. So it was kind of Peter Sellers, Harry Seacombe, and Spike Milligan. And before Peter Sellers became a kind of like an international like movie star. And very kind of like surreal humor. And I think that always had a kind of like a big influence on me. And also Simpsons as well. It's just kind of like, I don't think you can be kind of like someone of my age and not have your sense of humor kind of like have been shaped by the Simpsons in some point in some way. But yeah, always just kind of like, you know, you soak up influences like a sponge, really.
Yeah. Tell me, as a picture book author, one of the things because this has been a learning experience for me, you know, learning the first thing when I learned that it can take 3 or 4 years for a picture book from the time they buy them until the time they hit the shelves, that kind of made my head explode. But one of the things I never thought of when I was reading to my kids is how an author has to leave room for the illustrator to tell parts of the story. Was that, as somebody who had been writing books for adults and kind of responsible for the whole thing, was that difficult for you to learn?
No, I don't think. I mean, I definitely had a very kind of like clear picture in my mind about what the picture of I could see it in my mind, even though I like, you know, so and I was kind of like writing to that image in my mind. But Dan, like, so now, first of all, like, so much of the kind of like of what he ended up doing was very, very close to what I was picturing, and the stuff that that he did that I wasn't picturing ended up being better anyway. So it was kind of like it was really kind of like a win-win situation. Yeah, I mean, like this is my first picture book, so so there's only so I don't have that much experience with it, but no, it's been a very, very easy process, I think.
Excellent.
Like if you're working with someone of that caliber, then it's got to be easy. What it reminded me most of is I actually did write comic books for I was a writer on an Irish superhero comic called The League of Volunteers. Would have been around like 12, 15 years ago now. And so that was kind of like that whole kind of like learning to kind of like to use as little language as possible and just trust in the kind of like the images to tell the story. And that was kind of like, that was a very important kind of like learning experience.
Yeah. I love it. Can you give us a sneak preview of the next book in the series?
So the next book is going to be called Help, I'm Being Eaten by a Bear. And it's very, 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 very loosely based on an experience I had in Alaska. When I went to Alaska and I did encounter a bear. Now, thankfully, I was indoors at the time, and that's not what happens in the book. So it's kind of it's a story about basically. So I had a kind of like in the book I have a kind of like a pamphlet about what to do if you encounter a bear, and the pamphlet is completely useless, and the kind of like the situation just kind of like it's just a spiraling series of misunderstandings between me and the bear.
Well, it seems like you've really kind of found a home in this kidlit world.
Yeah, well, I'm here now until they kick me out.
That's good. I'm curious, why did we pick the fish to put the spotlight on of all the creatures in the world?
So, growing up, I was always I was always fascinated by animals, and I love learning about animals. But I was always one of those kids who really liked to kind of like everything to be organized and everything to be kind of like neat. And I loved kind of like learning about, say, some mammals. This is what makes an animal a mammal. If it kind of like, if it's warm blooded and it has fur and it feeds its young milk, it's a mammal. And I like that kind of like that simplicity of it. And then when you get to fish, and you can't do that. And that kind of like, so I think I always had a little bit of resentment that they were kind of like, they were the fly in the ointment, or the kind of like the ones who just kind of like you couldn't be kind of like neatly tidied away, and then it just kind of like you turned into this kind of like this utterly paranoid mania about fish.
I hear you. The fish are kind of weird. It's you can have a relationship with a dog or even a bear, but not so much a fish.
Yeah. I kind of like I'm a little anxious. I'm kind of like that. There's a generation of kids growing up that'll take this seriously, and that I'll set ocean conservation back like 20 years. I love fish. I think they're beautiful animals and also delicious.
Yes. I plan on having some tonight.
Did you have fish and chips actually when you were in Dublin?
Yes, I had fish and chips in Dublin and in most of the cities that we visited. But the one thing I have to tell you, I have to ask you about this. The first time I had fish and chips, it was really fish and chips, please, yes. And the waitress said, "Would you like mushy peas with that?"
Was that in England by any chance?
It could have been at first.
Yeah.
Well,
that's more of an English thing.
More of an English thing. Okay. But we did. I'm pretty sure we had it in Ireland as well. But we were having these a lot of the like this story about Dublin. I can't tell you on the podcast. But we were having a lot of dinners. We were with a group, so we're having a lot of dinners in the hotels. And so I don't think we're not, normally eating what the locals were eating. But I had, you might as well give a plug to Ireland. I had such a wonderful time, visiting Ireland. It's a lovely, lovely country.
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted you had a good experience.
Yeah. And, Dublin, I found Dublin to be a really great city. There's a lot of really good energy in the city. There's a lot going on. I felt very safe walking. We're out late at night walking around. I felt really safe. But it's definitely a big city with a lot happening in it.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear you say that, because there's been talk about that ever since the kind of like the pandemic ended. The kind of like the vibe has been different in the city, and kind of like and it hasn't been as kind of like as nice maybe. So I'm very glad to hear you say you felt safe. That's good.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things we were there, part of the group was the parents of my daughter's fiance, and so we were walking around, and the first thing we said in the morning at breakfast is like, our kids should come over here. They'll really like this.
That's good. I hope they do.
Is there a website we can go to that we can find out more about you and Don't Trust Fish and the writings that you create for adults?
Yeah. So it's not really kind of like, I've been blogging for around 13 years now. It's not really a kind of like, it's not really for kids.
Okay.
But I have my kind of like my movie review blog on shavemouse.com. And I do kind of like, I post stuff about my writing and kind of like new books coming out. And so that's kind of like, that's the central hub for all your Sharpson news.
awesome. We've had a great time talking to the author of Don't Trust Fish. It's a debut picture book that only took 20 minutes to write from our guest.
I'm going to get shot now, but
Our guest has been Neil Sharpson. Hey, Neil, thanks so much for being with us.
absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Kindness is quite magical, and respect is magical too. When you travel as much as Jed does, the magic comes right through. But he's not alone in his quest, he's got some helpers in his crew. 3 dogs that help him stage his show and bring it right to you. Real Magic Podcast, it's so much fun in many ways. Real Magic Podcast, tune in and you'll be amazed. Gently leads the charge as a magician and a bit of a clown. Calvin is a goofy pit bull who never seems to be down. Augie is a grumpy old beagle, or is he really a basset hound? And Daisy is a border collie wiener dog that knows her way around. Real Magic Podcast, it's so much fun in many ways. Real Magic Podcast, tune in and you'll be amazed. Real Magic Podcast, it's so much fun in many ways. Real Magic Podcast, tune in and you'll be amazed.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed that musical preview of our new podcast. It's coming out soon, Real Magic Podcast. We're really excited about it. It's a podcast for kids and their parents, and we think you're going to love it. It's debuting in April, so please be sure to check it out. You'll be able to find it wherever you find your favorite shows. We also hope you enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. Please be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on X. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And of course, our website is readingwithyourkids.com. I want to take a minute to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Brett Bean. Please be sure to check out Muck and Honey, Treehouse Trouble. And also Neil Sharpson. Please be sure to check out the hilarious Don't Trust Fish. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Stella Charay. I want to thank Chris Hardy, who is the voice behind our Real Magic preview. Also, of course, want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. We also all want to join in to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you.